Lily's hands shook as she walked into the massive office. The air inside felt heavy and expensive. This was the top floor of the Sterling Tower. This was the territory of Alexander Sterling. He was the most powerful man Lily had ever seen. He sat behind a desk made of dark, polished wood. He did not look up when she entered. He was focused on a single piece of paper. That paper was a contract worth $5 billion. It was the most important document in the city. Lily was just a temp. She was only supposed to deliver his morning coffee. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She was nervous. She was always nervous around powerful people. Her heels felt too high. The carpet was too soft. Lily took a step forward. Suddenly, her foot caught on the edge of the rug. Her balance vanished. Time seemed to slow down. The tray slipped from her fingers. The cup of dark, scalding coffee flipped through the air. Lily gasped. She reached out to catch it, but she was too late. The liquid hit the desk with a wet splash. It didn't just hit the desk. It soaked the $5 billion contract. The ink began to bleed instantly. The white paper turned a muddy brown. Lily stood there. Her face went pale. Her mouth hung open. Silence filled the room. It was a heavy, terrifying silence. Alexander Sterling slowly looked up. His eyes were dark. They were full of a cold, sharp anger. He didn't scream. He didn't move at first. He just stared at the ruined paper. Then, his gaze shifted to Lily. She felt like a deer caught in headlights. She wanted to run, but her legs felt like lead. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" Alexander asked. His voice was low and dangerous. It was like the growl of a predator. I am so sorry." Lily cried. Tears immediately began to fill her eyes. She was a dramatic girl. Everything felt like the end of the world to her. "It was an accident. I tripped. I'll clean it up. I'll fix it." She reached for the paper, but Alexander slammed his hand down on the desk. The sound was like a gunshot. Lily jumped back. She let out a small sob. "Fix it." Alexander stood up. He was tall. He was much taller than she expected. He towered over her. He looked like a giant in his expensive suit. This was the only signed copy. "The investors are downstairs. They leave in 5 minutes. You didn't just spill coffee, Lily. You just destroyed a year of work. You destroyed billions of dollars. Please." Lily wailed. She covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook. "I don't have any money. I'm just a student. I can't pay for this." Alexander walked around the desk. Each step he took sounded like a death knell. Lily backed away. She headed for the door. She needed to escape. She reached for the handle, but Alexander was faster. He reached over her head and slammed the door shut. He turned the lock with a loud click. Lily was trapped. He leaned down, his face inches from hers. She could smell his expensive cologne. She could feel the heat radiating from his body. "You aren't going anywhere," Alexander whispered. His dominance was overwhelming. He blocked her entire view of the world. "Please let me go," Lily begged. She looked up at him with big, watery eyes. She looked innocent and terrified. "I'll do anything. Just don't call the police." "Anything?" Alexander asked. A slow, cruel smirk appeared on his lips. He liked the way she trembled. He liked the power he had over her. "That is a very dangerous word to use with a man like me." Lily sobbed harder. She felt like her heart was going to explode. She was so dramatic that she felt like she was dying. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Alexander grabbed her chin. He forced her to look at him. His grip was firm. He was an arrogant man who always got what he wanted. "You owe me, Lily. You owe me more money than you will see in 10 lifetimes. Since you can't pay me with cash, you will pay me with your time. You will pay me with your life." "What do you mean?" Lily whispered. Her voice was tiny. Alexander pulled a new document from a drawer in his desk. He didn't let go of her. He dragged her toward the desk. He shoved a gold pen into her hand. This is a contract, Alexander said. You will be my personal assistant. You will work for me 24 hours a day. You will live where I tell you to live. You will go where I tell you to go. You will belong to me until this debt is settled. For how long? Lily asked. She was shaking, so hard she could barely hold the pen. Until I say you are done, Alexander replied. He leaned in close to her ear. Sign it, now, or I call the police, and you spend the rest of your youth in a cell. Lily looked at the paper. She looked at the man, who looked like a handsome monster. She had no choice. She was trapped. She felt like a character in a tragic movie. She let out one last, loud sob. Then, she scribbled her name at the bottom of the page. Alexander snatched the paper away. He looked at her signature. He looked satisfied. He tucked the contract into his suit jacket. Welcome to your new life, Lily, Alexander said. He didn't look kind. He looked like he owned her. Don't bother going home. Your things will be moved tonight. From this moment on, you are mine. Lily sank to the floor. She put her head in her hands and cried. She was a prisoner. She was the personal assistant to a man who hated her. Her life was over. Or, she thought, it was just beginning. She looked up through her tears. Alexander was already back at his desk. He was already working. He didn't even look at her. He acted like she was just a piece of furniture he had bought. Lily felt a wave of fear, and something else she couldn't describe. She was terrified of him, but she couldn't stop looking at him. Stand up, Alexander commanded without looking at him. Lily scrambled to her feet. She wiped her eyes. Clean up that coffee, he said, then get me a new cup. And Lily, if you spill a single drop this time, the punishment will be much worse. Lily nodded quickly. She grabbed the napkins. She started scrubbing the floor. She was crying the whole time. She felt so dramatic. She felt like the world was watching her suffer. Alexander just watched her. He watched every move she made. He was a predator watching his prey. Lily knew she was in trouble. She knew her life would never be the same again. She was the billionaire's debt, and he was never going to let her forget it. Alexander Sterling did not ask questions. He gave orders. 2 hours after Lily signed the contract, a team of stylists arrived at the mansion. They moved like robots. They brushed Lily's hair. They applied heavy makeup to her face. They forced her into a dress that cost more than her college tuition. The dress was silk. It was a deep, blood-red color. It fit her body like a second skin. Lily looked in the mirror. She didn't recognize the girl staring back. She looked like a doll. She looked like a possession. Stop crying, Alexander said. He stood in the doorway. He was wearing a black tuxedo. He looked perfect. He looked like a king. You are ruining the makeup. It took them an hour to hide your red eyes. I don't want to go, Lily sobbed. She clutched the fabric of her dress. Her voice was high and dramatic. Everyone will look at me. They will know I don't belong there. They will know I'm just a servant. Alexander walked toward her. His footsteps were heavy on the marble floor. He didn't offer a hand. He didn't offer a kind word. He grabbed her arm. His grip was firm. It was the grip of a man who owned everything he touched. You aren't a servant tonight, Alexander hissed. He pulled her close. He leaned down so his lips brushed her way. Tonight, you are my shadow. You will stand where I stand. You will smile when I tell you to, and you will not embarrass me. But I'm scared. Lily wailed. She let a single tear fall. What if I trip again? What if I break something else? Alexander's eyes flashed with a dangerous light. He didn't care about her fee. He only cared about his reputation. He pulled her out of the room. He dragged her down the stairs. A black limousine waited outside. The driver opened the door. Alexander shoved Lily inside. He sat next to her. The car was dark. The air was cold. Lily huddled in the corner. She felt like a lamb being led to the slaughter. "Listen to me," Alexander said. The car started to move. "The people at this gala are sharks. They will try to find your weakness. They will try to make you fail. If you speak, speak clearly. If you are insulted, stay silent. I will handle the rest." Lily nodded. She was too terrified to speak. She watched the city lights flash by. She felt like she was in a nightmare. The car stopped in front of a massive mansion. It was even bigger than Alexander's home. There were cameras everywhere. Flashbulbs went off like lightning. The red carpet was long and intimidating. Alexander stepped out first. He reached back and pulled Lily out. The photographers started screaming. They wanted to know who she was. Alexander didn't answer. He kept his hand firmly on her waist. He steered her through the crowd. Inside, the gala was blinding. The chandeliers were made of real diamonds. The guests wore jewelry that sparkled like stars. The smell of expensive perfume and champagne was everywhere. Lily felt dizzy. She felt like she couldn't breathe. "Stay close," Alexander commanded. He began to move through the room. He talked to powerful men. He talked to beautiful women. Everyone bowed to him. Everyone wanted his attention. Lily stood by his side. She felt invisible. She felt like an ornament. Suddenly, a man approached them. He was older. He was fat and wore a suit that looked too tight. His name was Mr. Thorne. He was a billionaire, but he was a mean man. He looked at Lily with disgusting eyes. He looked at her like she was a piece of meat. "So, Sterling," Mr. Thorne laughed. His voice was loud and raspy. "Is this the new toy? I heard you found her in the trash. I heard she's the girl who ruined your contract." Lily's heart stopped. Her face turned bright red. The room went quiet. People nearby turned to look. "She is my personal assistant," Alexander said. His voice was cold. It was a warning. Mr. Thorne didn't listen. He stepped closer to Lily. He reached out and touched the silk of her dress. Lily flinched. She felt sick. "She doesn't look like an assistant," Mr. Thorne sneered. He looked Lily up and down. "She looks like a clumsy little girl. Tell me, sweetheart, how many things have you broken today? Are you as stupid as you look?" Lily felt the panic rising. She couldn't help it. She was too emotional. She was too dramatic. She couldn't stay silent like Alexander told her to. "I am not stupid," Lily shouted. Her voice echoed off the high ceilings. "I made a mistake. But you are a mean, horrible man. How dare you talk to me like that?" The entire room went silent. You could hear a pin drop. No one spoke to Mr. Thorne like that. No one caused a scene at a Sterling gala. Lily realized what she had done. She covered her mouth with her hands. She started to shake. "You little brat," Mr. Thorne hissed. His face turned purple with rage. He raised his hand. It looked like he was going to slap her. "Do you know who I am? I could buy your whole family and sell them for parts." Lily let out a loud, piercing scream. She backed away, hitting a waiter. A tray of champagne glasses tilted. Lily grabbed the waiter's arm to steady herself, but she was too clumsy. She knocked the tray over. Dozens of glass flutes shattered on the floor. Champagne soaked the expensive rug. "I'm sorry," Lily wailed. She fell to her knees. She started to sob. "I didn't mean to. Please don't hurt me." Mr. Thorne laughed. He looked at the crowd. "See? She's a disaster. She's a pathetic, low-class girl. Get her out of here before she ruins the whole building." Alexander hadn't moved. He stood like a statue, but his eyes were not cold anymore. They were burning. He looked at Mr. Thorne. He looked at the man who had touched his property. He looked at the man who had made his girl cry. Alexander took one step forward. He moved so fast it was a blur. He grabbed Mr. Thorne by the collar of his suit. He twisted the fabric tight. Mr. Thorne's eyes went wide. He couldn't breathe. "You touched her," Alexander said. His voice was a low, terrifying growl. Alexander, wait, Mr. Thorne wheezed. You insulted my assistant, Alexander continued. You raised your hand to her. You made her cry in front of these people. Alexander didn't wait for an answer. He began to drag Mr. Thorne toward the exit. He didn't care about the cameras. He didn't care about the guests. He was a dominant force of nature. He dragged the heavy man across the floor like he was a bag of trash. Let me go, Mr. Thorne yelled. Alexander reached the massive glass doors. He didn't open them slowly. He kicked them open with a loud bang. He threw Mr. Thorne out onto the concrete steps. Mr. Thorne rolled down the stairs. He landed in the dirt in front of all the photographers. If I ever see your face near her again, Alexander shouted so everyone could hear, I will destroy your company. I will take everything you own. You are banned from this city. Alexander turned back into the room. He looked at the shocked guests. No one dared to breathe. He looked at Lily. She was still on the floor. She was surrounded by broken glass and champagne. She was shaking and crying. Alexander walked to her. He didn't look angry at her anymore. He looked possessive. He reached down and picked her up. He didn't care that her dress was wet. He didn't care about the mess. He held her against his chest. Stop crying, he whispered. It wasn't a kind whisper. It was an order. I dealt with him. I ruined the party. Lily sobbed into his tuxedo. I broke everything. You're going to hate me. I don't hate you, Alexander said. He looked at the crowd. His eyes told everyone to look away. They all did. But you are mine. And no one treats what is mine with disrespect. He didn't put her down. He carried her out of the gala. He carried her past the flashing lights. He carried her to the car. He had protected her, but he had also shown her his power. Lily felt safer in his arms, but she also felt more trapped than ever. She knew now that Alexander Sterling was not just a boss. He was a man who would fight the world to keep her under his thumb. As the limousine drove away, Lily looked at Alexander. He was staring out the window. His face was like stone. Are you going to punish me? She whispered. Alexander looked at her. A dark smile touched his lips. The night is still young, Lily. We have a lot to talk about when we get home. Lily leaned back and closed her eyes. She was exhausted. She was emotional. She was the billionaire's debt. And today, the interest on that debt had just gone up. The underground parking garage was cold and smelled like old tires. Lily stood by the massive concrete pillar. She was waiting for Alexander. He had forgotten his briefcase in the office. He told her to stay exactly where she was. Lily was a dramatic girl. To her, every shadow looked like a person. Every drip of water sounded like a footstep. She hugged her arms to her chest. She was wearing a simple white blouse and a black skirt. She looked like a normal assistant, but she felt like a prisoner. Her heart was beating fast. She felt like something bad was going to happen. She was always emotional, and right now, her emotions were screaming at her to run. But she couldn't run. Alexander owned her. Where is he? Lily whispered. Her voice sounded small in the big garage. It's so dark in here. I hate the dark. Suddenly, a silver car turned the corner. It wasn't Alexander's car. It was moving too fast. It screeched to a halt right in front of Lily. The tires smoked. Lily jumped back. She almost tripped over her own feet. 3 men jumped out of the car. They didn't look like businessmen. They looked like thugs. They wore heavy jackets and had mean faces. One man stepped forward. He was tall and had a scar across his nose. This was Victor Russi. He was Alexander's biggest rival. He hated Alexander. He wanted to destroy him. Well, Victor said. His voice was like sandpaper. So this is the girl everyone is talking about. The famous debt holder. Who are you? Lily cried. She backed away until her back hit the cold concrete. Stay away from me. I don't know you. You don't need to know me, sweetheart, Victor laughed. He looked at his men. You just need to come with us. Alexander Sterling took something from me last year. Now, I'm going to take something from him. I'm going to take you. No. Lily screamed. She was terrified. She felt like her heart was going to pop out of her chest. Help! Alexander! Help me! Victor grabbed her arm. His grip was like iron. It hurt. Lily began to sob. She was a dramatic girl, and she let out a loud, piercing wail. She tried to pull away, but she was too weak. She was just an innocent girl who didn't know how to fight. Shut up! Victor hissed. He covered her mouth with his hand. If you keep screaming, I'll make sure you never speak again. Get her in the car. The two other men grabbed her legs. They began to lift her off the ground. Lily kicked and struggled. She felt like she was in a horror movie. She thought about her life. She thought about her father. She thought about how she would never see the sun again. Tears streamed down her face. Her makeup was ruined. She felt completely hopeless. But then, a roar echoed through the garage. It was the sound of a high-performance engine. It sounded like a hungry beast. A black sports car flew around the corner. It didn't slow down. It headed straight for Victor's silver sedan. The black car slammed into the side of the silver car with a loud crash. Metal twisted. Glass shattered. The thugs dropped Lily in shock. Alexander Sterling stepped out of the black car. He didn't look like a businessman anymore. He looked like a killer. His expensive suit jacket was open. His tie was loose. His eyes were full of a dark, violent rage. He didn't say a word. He didn't ask if Lily was okay. He just walked toward the men. Sterling! Victor yelled. He pulled a small knife from his pocket. You think you can just ram my car? I'll kill this girl right now. Alexander didn't stop. He moved with the speed of a predator. He reached Victor in 2 seconds. He didn't care about the knife. He grabbed Victor's wrist and twisted it. There was a loud snap. Victor screamed in pain. The knife fell to the floor. Alexander didn't stop there. He punched Victor in the face. The sound was like a hammer hitting a piece of meat. Victor's head snapped back. He fell to the ground, but Alexander pulled him back up by his shirt. You touched her, Alexander said. His voice was low and terrifying. It was a dominant growl. I told the whole world she was mine. Did you think I was joking? Alexander hit him again. He hit him so hard that Victor's teeth flew out. The two other thugs tried to help their boss. One tried to tackle Alexander from behind. Alexander didn't even look. He kicked the man in the stomach. The man doubled over and vomited. The third man saw Alexander's face and turned to run. Alexander didn't let him. He grabbed a heavy metal trash can and threw it. It hit the man in the back of the head. The man went down like a stone. Lily watched everything from the floor. She was shaking. She was crying so hard she couldn't breathe. She had never seen Alexander like this. He was powerful. He was arrogant. He was a monster. But he was her monster. Alexander turned back to Victor. Victor was crawling on the floor. He was covered in blood. Alexander stepped on Victor's hand. He pressed down with his expensive leather shoe. Victor screamed again. If you ever look at her again, Alexander whispered, I won't just break your bones. I will erase your name from history. I will burn your life to the ground. Do you understand me? Victor nodded quickly. He was sobbing now too. He was no longer a rival. He was a broken man. Alexander finally let go. He didn't look at the blood on his hands. He didn't look at the ruined cars. He walked over to Lily. She was still on the ground, curled in a ball. She was making small, gasping sounds. Get up, Alexander commanded. Lily looked up at him. Her eyes were wide with fear. You hurt them. You were so mean. I saved you, Alexander said. He didn't sound nice. He sounded like he was losing his patience. Now get up. We are leaving. Lily couldn't move. Her legs felt like jelly. She just kept crying. I'm so scared. I want to go home. Please let me go home. Alexander sighed. It was a frustrated sound. He reached down and grabbed her waist. He didn't wait for her to stand. He threw her over his shoulder like a sack of grain. Lily screamed and hit his back. "Put me down. You're hurting me." "Be quiet, Lily," Alexander said. He walked back to his sports car. The front was smashed, but the engine was still running. He opened the passenger door and dumped her into the leather seat. He leaned over her and pulled the seatbelt tight. He was so close she could smell the iron smell of blood on him. "Stay here," he ordered. He walked around to the driver's side and jumped in. He put the car in gear. The tires spun on the concrete, making a loud screaming noise. He drove out of the garage and onto the street. He drove fast. He wove through traffic like a maniac. Lily gripped the door handle. She was terrified of the kidnappers, but she was also terrified of Alexander. "Why are you doing this?" Lily wailed. She covered her face with her hands. "Why can't you just be a normal person? Why is everything a fight?" Alexander gripped the steering wheel. His knuckles were white. He looked ahead at the road. "Because the world is full of people like Victor, and you are too stupid to realize that you need a man like me to survive. You are mine, Lily. That means I protect you, but it also means you follow my rules." "I hate your rules," Lily shouted. She was being dramatic again. She felt like she was in a prison. "I hate this car. I hate this life." Alexander didn't answer. He just drove faster. The city lights blurred outside the window. Lily cried until she had no tears left. She looked at Alexander's profile. He looked cold and hard. He had just beaten 3 men to a pulp for her. She didn't know if she should be grateful or run away. She only knew one thing for sure. Alexander Sterling would never let her go. She was his debt. She was his prize. And tonight, she had learned just how far he would go to keep her. As they reached the mansion, the gates opened automatically. Alexander parked the car and turned off the engine. Silence filled the small space. "Inside," Alexander said. "Now." Lily opened the door and ran toward the house. She didn't look back. She didn't want to see the blood on his hands anymore, but she could hear his footsteps behind her. He was always behind her. He was always watching. Lily sat on the edge of her massive bed. The silk sheets felt like cold water against her skin. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. It was 2 in the morning. Every tick felt like a hammer hitting a nail. She looked around the room. It was beautiful. There were expensive paintings on the walls. There was a walk-in closet full of designer clothes. But to Lily, it was just a cell. A very expensive cell. She was a 100-level student. She was supposed to be studying at university. She was supposed to be in a garden with her friends. She wasn't supposed to be the property of a man like Alexander Sterling. She was an innocent girl who had made a mistake. A very expensive mistake. She thought about the gala. She thought about the parking lot. Alexander was a hero, but he was also a monster. He had beaten men until they bled. He had thrown billionaires out of parties. He did all of it to protect her, but he also did it because he owned her. He had reminded her 1,000 times. She was his debt. She was his assistant. She was his shadow. Lily couldn't take the pressure anymore. Her emotions were too high. She was a dramatic girl, and her heart felt like it was going to burst. She had to leave. She had to run away. Lily stood up. She moved like a ghost. She didn't turn on the lights. She grabbed her old backpack from the closet. She didn't take the red dress. She didn't take the diamonds. She put on her old jeans and a hoodie. She stuffed a few pairs of socks and her charger into the bag. She reached for her phone. She had no messages. Alexander had taken her SIM card. He didn't want her talking to anyone. He wanted her isolated. He wanted her all to himself. "I'm leaving," she whispered to the empty room. "I'm going home." She opened the heavy oak door. It didn't creak. Everything in this house worked perfectly. The hallway was long and dark. The moon shone through the tall windows. It cast long, skinny shadows on the carpet. Lily walked on her tiptoes. She held her breath. She passed Alexander's bedroom. She could hear the faint sound of his breathing through the door. It was steady. It was calm. He was sleeping. He thought he had already won. He thought she was too broken to fight back. Lily reached the grand staircase. She looked down into the foyer. It was empty. The guards were usually at the front door. She couldn't go out that way. She remembered the side entrance near the gardens. The kitchen staff used it for deliveries. She moved toward the back of the house. The smell of expensive floor wax filled her nose. Every step felt like a mile. Every shadow looked like a hand reaching out to grab her. She was terrified, but she was also determined. She reached the kitchen. The stainless steel appliances glowed in the dark. She found the side door. She pressed her ear against the wood. She heard nothing. She turned the lock. It clicked softly. Lily opened the door and stepped out into the night. The air was cold. It hit her face like a slap. She didn't care. She was outside. She was free. She ran across the perfectly manicured lawn. The grass was wet with dew. Her sneakers got soaked instantly. She didn't stop. She ran toward the forest that bordered the estate. She knew there was a wall. She knew there were gates. But she had to try. She was an emotional girl, and the hope of freedom made her move faster than she ever had before. She reached the perimeter wall. It was 10 feet high. It was topped with sharp metal spikes. Lily looked left and right. She saw the iron gates in the distance. They were the only way out. She ran along the wall. Her chest was burning. Her lungs felt like they were on fire. She reached the gates. They were shut tight. There was no guard in the booth. They must be patrolling the other side. Open! Lily cried. She grabbed the cold iron bars. She shook them with all her might. Please open. The gates didn't move. They were locked by a computer. Lily sank to her knees. She put her head against the bars. She started to sob. Her cries were loud and dramatic. She felt like the world had betrayed her. She was just a girl who wanted to go back to her simple life. She didn't want to be a billionaire's toy. She didn't want to be part of this dangerous world. You never learn, do you? The voice came from right behind her. Lily's heart stopped. She didn't even have to look. She knew who it was. The air around her suddenly felt heavy. The smell of expensive wood and cold rain filled her senses. It was Alexander. He wasn't sleeping. He had been waiting. Lily turned around. Alexander was standing 3 feet away. He was wearing a black silk robe over his trousers. His chest was bare. He looked like a king who had just stepped off his throne. He looked arrogant. He looked powerful. And he looked absolutely furious. I want to go home. Lily screamed. She stood up and faced him. She was shaking with rage and fear. Let me out of here. I don't owe you anything. You're a kidnapper. You're a criminal. Alexander didn't say a word. He didn't have to. He just walked toward her. Lily tried to dodge him. She tried to run back toward the house, but she was too slow. Alexander reached out and caught her by the waist. He swung her around. He slammed her back against the cold stone pillar of the gate. The impact knocked the wind out of her. Lily gasped for air. Before she could recover, Alexander pinned her there. He slammed his hands against the stone on either side of her head. He was so close she could feel the heat of his skin. He was a dominant wall of muscle and anger. Let me go. Lily wailed. She tried to push his chest, but it was like pushing a mountain. I hate you. I hate you more than anything. Is that right? Alexander hissed. He leaned down. His face was inches from hers. His dark eyes were fixed on her lips. You hate me? After I saved you from those animals in the parking lot? After I took you into my home and gave you everything? You gave me a prison. Lily shouted. Tears were streaming down her face. She looked innocent and broken. You bought me like a dog. I am a human being. I am not a debt. Alexander's grip on her became more aggressive. He grabbed her chin and forced her to look him in the eye. His fingers were firm. He didn't care if it hurt. He was an arrogant man who had finally lost his patience. You think I care about the money? Alexander roared. His voice was like thunder. You think I'm doing this because of a $5 billion contract? I have 50 more contracts just like it. I could burn that paper and not lose a wink of sleep. Then why? Lily sobbed. She was a dramatic girl, and she let her head fall back against the stone. Why won't you let me go? Alexander leaned in. He pressed his body against hers. He wanted her to feel his power. He wanted her to know she had no escape. Because I won't let anyone else have you, he confessed. His voice was a raw, aggressive growl. The moment you walked into my office, I knew, you're mine. You're the only person who doesn't look at me with fear or greed. You look at me with pure, honest emotion. And I'm never letting that go. You're crazy, Lily whispered. She was terrified, but she also felt a strange, electric spark in her heart. I'm obsessed, Alexander corrected. He ran his thumb over her bottom lip. You can try to run every single night. You can climb the walls. You can hide in the woods. But I will always find you. I will always bring you back here. You belong in this mansion. You belong in my life. You are the only thing that makes me feel alive, Lily. And I will burn this whole city to the ground before I let you walk away. Lily looked at him. She saw the raw desperation in his eyes. He wasn't just a billionaire. He was a man who was drowning, and she was his only lifeline. She was an emotional girl, and his confession hit her like a physical blow. She didn't know if she should run or stay. You're staying, Alexander said. It wasn't a question. It was a command. Now, pick up your bag. He let go of her chin but didn't move away. He stayed close, breathing in her scent. Lily reached down and grabbed her backpack. She felt defeated. She felt trapped. But she also felt a strange sense of safety. Alexander grabbed her hand. He didn't hold it gently. He locked his fingers with hers so she couldn't pull away. He began to drag her back toward the mansion. Don't ever try this again, Alexander said. He didn't look at her as they walked. From now on, there will be a guard outside your door 24 hours a day. You wanted to be my assistant. Well, now you're my shadow. You don't leave my sight. Not for a second. They entered the house. The warmth of the foyer felt like a trap. Alexander led her up the stairs. He took her back to her room. He pushed her inside and stood in the doorway. Good night, Lily, he said. His voice was cold again, but his eyes were still burning. Try to dream about me, because I'm the only thing you're going to see for a very, very long time. He slammed the door shut. The lock clicked. Lily stood in the middle of the room. She looked at her reflection in the mirror. Her hair was messy. Her eyes were red. She looked like a girl in a romance novel. She was the billionaire's debt. She was his obsession. And deep down, she knew she was never getting her old life back. She lay down on the bed and closed her eyes. She could still feel the heat of his body against hers. She was trapped, but she wasn't alone.